you will be surprised how quickly you can get your rate up. You will be smashing through ceilings that you didn't even know that you could get through.
So you probably found this video because you're a raving fan of Chris Do in the future. And there's also probably a good chance that you want to get better at selling for your business, but hate the Wolf of Wall Street vibes. Personally, as someone who's been burned by gurus in the past, Chris Do is just a breath of fresh air. As I'm researching his content, I love the question that he asks, the collaborative vibe that he has, and his unique insights on selling. He's so good at asking those questions like, oh, I never thought about that before. And if you're anything like me, you start binge watching his videos and start having those aha moments. But that's the exact problem. There's so many videos you're like, what do I do again? So today I'm going to break down Chris Do's sales process in just 7 minutes. And if you feel awkward selling or talking about money, this video is for you. I spent hours binging Chris's sales YouTube videos, paid for his $1,500 future pro group, and even met Chris in real life. So let's break down his 7 steps to his sales process. And before we begin, timestamps are below, along with references of the books that Chris frequently talks about. By the way, if you'd like to support Chris's work and my channel, I left some affiliate links below for his courses. Plus, I've left a free sales script that I use based off Chris Do's framework, so you don't have to look everything up. Now back to the video. Let's get into it. Step 1, discover the desired future state. So the problem is, if you've ever been on a sales call, then you can probably relate to the question, how do you even start the conversation? The solution? Chris would say, find out their desired future state. And how do we do it? Well, Chris Do actually takes a tip from The Coaching Habit, one of my favorite books on asking questions, and he starts with the what questions. What questions are neutral and unbiased? So here are some of the ways that we can ask more what questions in our sales conversations. What's on your mind? What are you hoping to accomplish? What's motivating this conversation today? What would be a big win for you? And something new that Chris shared on the pro group call was this.
What's the one thing that you'd like to accomplish that would make all the other goals easy or unnecessary?
Once you identified the desired future state, some other questions you might ask might be the obstacles that they're facing. Like, what's getting in your way of accomplishing this? What's the real challenge for you? Step 2. Define success metrics. So now that you understand their future state, how do you figure out the value and determine a price for their desired outcome? And more importantly, how do you avoid the fulfillment nightmare? The solution? Get the client to commit to the measures of success and come to agreement on metrics. This not only quantifies the value that you're offering, but also avoids the whole fulfillment nightmare where the client doesn't feel like they're getting value. We're handling this up front. So one way to do this, so you mentioned that you want to do X. So how would you measure this success metrics of this? By when? Another approach is by Blair Enns, the author of The Win Without Pitching Manifesto and the book Pricing Creativity. Blair was actually on Chris's podcast and recommended this. You said you want to improve X. I like to try to quantify that. Are you measuring X objectively now, or is it just a feeling that X is poor? Can you give me some benchmarks for what you would see as acceptable, good, and great? And if your client doesn't know, it's a great time to have a discussion and just come up with the benchmarks together. Step 3, talk about money early. The problem is no one likes the anxiety or roller coaster feeling of the dreaded price drop. Oftentimes, if you do this wrong, it can trigger a fight, flight, or freeze response. This is when your clients can argue with you, they ghost you, or they just prolong the decision and say, I need to think about it. So what's the solution? It's to talk about money early to make it less awkward and see if the client can afford our services before wasting valuable time and resources. And here's 3 ways that Chris does it. Number 1, minimum level of engagement. This is one of Chris's favorite books, Win Without Pitching. And the 9th rule of the Win Without Pitching Manifesto.
Minimum level of engagement. What we want to do is declare it early in conversation so that if the client can't afford us, both of us can walk away before wasting valuable time and resources.
But how exactly do you bring this up? Well, you can point out a gap and ask something like this.
And say, hey, before we go too far, you're a smaller organization than we're used to doing business with. I'm just a little concerned about your ability to afford us. And then pause, embrace silence. Or you could say, hey, before we go too far, I just need you to know that we have a minimum level of engagement of X in fees over the course of 12 months.
Or if you're not a big fan of the whole awkward silence, you might ask, are these numbers that you can possibly work with? Blair will tell you.
But you start to shape your language a little bit more around relationships. So you would say, our minimum level of engagement is $20,000 in fees over the course of 12 months. Stop, embrace silence, count to 10 under your breath, admire your cuticles, whatever you have to do.
Okay, but what if you have a whole wide range of services? Sure, your minimum level of engagement is $10,000, but what happens if your packages or projects range up to $1 million? This is when Chris will do this second technique, price bracketing. Price bracketing is when you give a wide range of numbers to a potential client to help them get a sense of how much you'll charge. This is a very subtle way of providing pricing guidance in the form of a range. So this is how it might go down. Based on what we've discussed thus far, similar projects have cost us between $300K to $150K. Does that budget range work for you? Notice that we started with the higher range first, and then we ended with the lower range. This uses a principle called price anchoring. Think of anchoring as a mental shortcut or a heuristic. It just primes the thought process around the first piece of information, more so that first higher pricing. Really, price anchoring is just setting expectations. And if you want to use it correctly, Chris recommends anchoring high or anchoring above where you expect the client to actually spend. And after you drop the question, you want to see where they are in the range and address any hesitations like Chris does here. Chris really emphasizes addressing any buyer resistance before proceeding with the bid.
And this is how Christo does it in real life.
How much money do you have to spend on this?
Well, how about you come back to me with some ideas and tell me what those things might cost.
Okay, so here's the thing is, I don't want to come back with an idea that's so far out of your range. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of your time, to be honest. We've done that in the past with not good results. I just don't need an exact number, but how big is the sandbox we need to play in? Are we talking about 100 to 200K? Are we talking 2 to 500 or over $1 million? Because we've done projects in all ranges. Where are we in? What ballpark are we in?
I'd like to try to stick with closer to the 100,000 range, if possible.
Okay, I can hear some hesitation in your voice if I'm interpreting that correctly. And so when I said between the 100 to 200, are we closer to 200 or to 100?
I'd feel more comfortable seeing what we can get in that range before deciding where the budget is.
Okay, so if I come back to you and I do a budget, say for 180,000, does that keep us in contention for what you're willing to spend?
Yes.
So I don't want there to be any surprises. I don't like surprises. It's not like a birthday gift or a surprise anniversary party. Those are good. This is the kind of surprise where we do some work and we think of some ideas and we come back and you're like, you know what? We have $45,000. I'd be really disappointed if that were the case.
Right.
Are we in agreement there?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna go away. I'm gonna think about some ideas, not to exceed 180. But I know our team, my creative directors, they know how to stretch a dollar. So the more money you give us to work with, the better we can make it. Okay.
Got it.
All right. So I'll probably submit something around there. Okay. So that's the end of the scene. What's the number you wrote?
200,000.
Okay. So you're playing a little hard with me. So you guys see, I'm not gonna go away and build an estimate for 400. So I got pretty close.
He takes a page from this book, Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, and uses labeling. He might say, I noticed, or it seems like, it sounds like, it looks like. So I notice some hesitation from your reaction. Are you uncomfortable spending this amount? Why not? What is more likely to get approved? You can have a conversation over that, but it just eliminates the objections ahead of time. While brackets are great, what if you want to provide a premium solution based off the value you provide for your client? And this is where the value-based pricing comes into play. Number 3, value-based pricing. In the book, Pricing Creativity, Blair Enns speaks about value-based pricing, where the goal is not to charge more. That's just a beneficial consequence. The goal of value-based pricing is to create an offer that is focused on creating extraordinary customer value. There's a saying by Peter Drucker, all profit is derived from risk. So how do we see if a decision maker is actually open to the option of a value-based offer? So value-based offers are an opportunity where we can take a higher risk for a higher compensation that is based off of higher value for the client. Chris does it in a few ways. Step 1, self-anchor.
And then they say, so by my estimation, you're willing to spend in the neighborhood of $65,000. Does that sound about right? I'm like, yes, of course.
And then check for hesitation.
I want to think about this, but if I were to come back to you with a proposal in the neighborhood of X, would this be something you'd be comfortable with moving forward with?
Step 4. Address the ghost in the room.
If you've been in this game long enough, the problem is that we probably all lost deals because we failed to consider the options of the other decision makers that aren't in the conversation. So how do we ask tactfully about their decision-making process or the other people that should be part of the conversation?
The solution? Address the ghost in the room. Here's how.
Sometimes you have to ask this question before you get off the phone, is to say, is there someone else who would be influential in making this decision that's not here right now? Like, yes. Who is this person? If they were in this room, what would their concern be?
This move by Chris is smart. Now, you not only know who the other players are, but you're getting the sense of the potential objections coming up ahead. Step 5. Summarize to show that you're listening.
Oftentimes, the reason why we lose deals are the assumptions that we make or the concerns we just gloss over with our client that make our client feel unheard.
So what's the solution? Show the client that we're actually listening and that we actually care about. Chris says this: if I understand you, this is what I gathered. Point A, point B, point C. Is that correct? The answer, regardless, if it's a yes, that's great, you move on. If it's a no, then you can get clarification. Then always ask, is there anything else? Step 6. Provide options. The problem is when humans are given one option, they're really bad at determining absolute value. They think, is this the right solution? The solution? Humans are a lot better at comparing different options. And here's how we do it. So you go into your back cave, you come up with the solution, and Chris says,
and then you say, well, I've devised, guess what? 3 potential solutions for you, starting with hot, spicy, mild, and medium, or spicy, medium, and mild. And you would just give them essentially what you've already designed. And you would tweak the language, you would maybe move the prices up and down a little bit, but the essential would be the same.
Ideally, you offer them 3 different solutions. The easiest way, done for you, done with you, do it yourself. And then you let them decide.
Oftentimes, we're really bad at assessing our client's risk tolerance and knowing what's best for them. So what's the solution? Let them choose. Counterintuitive, right?
Step 7, conditional hypothetical close. The problem is making a commitment is scary. The word decide literally means eliminating or killing possibility.
At least that's what I think it means according to my 7th grade Latin class. Sorry, I'm a failed Latin scholar. Sorry, Miss Goodman.
What's the solution? Well, we can make it safe by using a hypothetical instead. And Chris actually gets this from this book, Socratic Selling. Here's how we do it.
So right here at the end, you want to just use the if-then conditional hypothetical close, and I'll show you what that means. So here's how I would say something like this. From what I'm hearing, if a vendor could ensure delivery of a website that increased conversion rates from 2 to 4%, which would increase profit by $400,000 this year, then you'd consider this a home run. And they would say, yes, that's correct. And then you're going to follow up, if we submit a proposal for $65,000 by the end of business day, then you're ready to move forward next week. Is that correct?
Chris does a really great job at making it saying no. And when it's safe, the client feels okay bringing up their concerns. And then you can end with, how would you like to proceed from here? Obviously, there's a lot more.
So at this point, you're like, this is great, Kevin. I'm going to try this on my next sales call. I'm going to sound like Chris Stowe. You try it out, and then guess what? You bomb. The truth is, there's a lot more to know than knowing what to say. And this leads me to the next point.
Chris has been doing this for years and has mastered objection handling, the soft skills, and delivery. But we'll save those topics for another video. If there's one thing I've learned though, Chris is always learning from different people. So if you like this video, then you'll probably like my video where I expose my own sales script that I've used to take my clients from $250K per month to $500K per week. I've used this exact same process for coaching offers, digital marketing services, and more. And it's all for free. See you soon. Peace.